I'm just posting the link for our chat on my Facebook so people can find it if they want.
Yay. We are live, everybody. Today is Wednesday, the 7th of March, 2018. Patricia UK, Levkungfu UK on the panel. Special guest, JayDreamerZ.
Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
Hello.
We're just saying you've just woken up. And you're not
Yeah.
a morning person.
Not much of a morning person, no. However, it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I guess it's about time.
Yeah, but I bet you went to bed late though, didn't you?
Usually, yeah. I usually stay up pretty late because I enjoy the peace at nighttime. Everyone else is asleep, and I feel more in my element when I'm awake at the time when others are asleep.
I know what you mean. There's silence, isn't there? Silence.
Yeah, it's peaceful, and there's just less activity going on, and less electronics, less interference basically at night whenever everyone's asleep. So I find that my mind is more clear, and I can think and feel a lot more clearly than I can during the daytime.
Yeah, I actually like my favorite. Sorry, Lev. My favorite time is the dawn. I love being up for that, even though it's really like late. If I'm up, I'd like to see the dawn come in. So quiet and crisp. Dawn. I love being up for that. I can hear myself. Sorry, Lev. What were you going to say? I'd like to see the dawn come in. So quiet and crisp. Lev? Sorry, Lev, what were you going to say? What were you going to say?
No, I like when I used to draw a lot and stuff like. I'd find out better at night time and stuff, and even like spiritual stuff. They tell you to do that like in evening as well. Yeah.
Can I just say, Jay, we can hear the playback on the Hangout.
Oh, yeah, I'm hearing it too. 1 second. Okay, that was my fault. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Is everything good now?
Yeah, I think it's all right now. Yeah.
Okay, that was my fault. I apologize.
That's okay. Anyway, I know you work really hard on all your videos and stuff, and I know how long that takes to do.
Yeah, it does. It takes an incredibly long time. I'm really amazed because it's so much easier to do a live hangout than it is to edit and piece together and research for a 3-minute video. Like one of my, shorter videos, like the breadcrumb series that I do. Those take like a good 6 hours of work.
Yeah, because you think, oh, it'll only take me 5-10 minutes, and then by the time you've edited, you think you stick music, or you get the thing lags, or the music jumps, or whatever's going to go on just to make you have to do it for longer. Yeah, it takes a long time to do videos.
Yeah. Well, I want to say hello to everyone who's watching. I do have the chat up on my side, so I'll be able to see, everyone's comments and things like that. So is there any particular topic on you guys' mind? Oh, I should probably let you know, since it says Flat Earth in the title, I just popped in at random last night. Sometimes I pop into random live streams just to check out other channels or just people, just to, to mingle and to say hello and, see what's going on out there. And I jumped onto this one channel and I was like, hey, what's the topic? What are you guys talking about? It was some kid, and he was just sitting in front of the camera, just kind of chatting away about not a lot. And I guess they started talking about a flat earther that they were watching his videos. And I can't remember the name, but it's you know, I don't keep up with everyone and watch everybody or anything. But I was like, oh, okay, well, who is that? And their response was, well, he's probably a danger to society. And I'm in the chat room and I'm just like, oh, good. That's great. And they were like, oh, really? So you support that? And I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, not physical violence or anything, but I absolutely support, you know, throwing a wrench into the system itself. But the guy who was running the video, who was on the camera, he was very pro system and he was supporting it. And he was started to talk about how the system is good for us and it has our best interest in mind. And there's benefits to being in the system or whatnot. And it's a better world than it used to be. So I started making some more comments and he said something to the effect of, oh, let me guess, you're a flat earther. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I am. So he just went right into calling me an idiot and a moron and a flat tard and all of this stuff. So I stayed in the chat for a while, but then eventually, you know, he was like, you know, I'd like to see you put your face on the internet and, you know, talk about these ideas live on the internet for everyone to see. You know, it's easy to just talk from a chat room. So I said, okay, I'm more than happy. Would you like me to jump on and we can chat about it, you know, and have dialogue and discussion? And then he kind of backed away for a little bit, and then everyone in the chat room was kind of pressuring him, like, yeah, you know, have that guy on. So anyway, I jumped on, and I immediately just wanted to address. I didn't really want to address and get into debate right away as to cosmology and the shape of the world or whatnot. I wanted to address that, you know, calling me a retard and judging my entire collective intellect and its worth or worthlessness based on an opposing view, a view that doesn't directly harm a person, a view that doesn't steal from anyone or take from anyone, simply sharing my own path. Not only that, but I was asked. You know, I didn't jump into the chat to troll or, you know, to be some sort of flat earth missionary or anything. I was asked, and immediately I was ridiculed and put down, and, you know, my intellect itself was deemed worthless due to just the trigger of the word flat earth or the words flat earth, right? So I wanted to address that to him. And I went into detail and I was talking with him, and his stance was, well, you are an idiot. You know, if you think the earth is flat, then you're an idiot. And so using reason and logic, you know, I tried to have a conversation with him so that maybe I could help him to see that, you know, that's the system that we live in. The system that we live in says you are to judge others immediately. You know, he said you're always going to be at the mercy of the listener, you know, which basically means everyone needs to put on an act. Everyone needs to pretend. Everyone needs to be an apple polisher and go with the flow and do what you're told. This is basically what he was conveying. Now, typically, whenever people say things like that, when you get specific, and this is why I like details. This is why I get into the details of things, because we are conditioned as a society. First of all, we're taught vague generalities. That's all. It's trivia. It's vague generalities. We're taught how to regurgitate and repeat back those same vague generalities. And the reason being is that it's a form of spell. It's a form of hypnotism, so that a lot of people feel like, and I'm just gonna say this as a side note, but you don't hear "I don't know" a lot when it comes to many of these truth channels. You know, I don't hear a whole bunch of people just being honest when they don't know something and just saying, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure. You know, flat earthers are expected to know all the answers as to, you know, all the questions that people have that would explain away any curiosity that a person would have as to how that model works or whatnot, right? So we're conditioned to repeat and to speak in vague general terms. The reason being is because they can't be there. There's no retort to them. And if anything, they only leave more questioning to an open mind. To those who don't have more of an open mind, they simply accept all of the dialogue, all of the words and empty fodder as an answer in itself, as satisfaction. Okay, I'm satisfied. They repeated something back to me, and so I accept that at face value. And so, I continued lines of questioning, and we did talk about the flat Earth model for a little while, and they jumped onto my page, and some other people. It's usually very much a group mentality or a gang mentality, really, is what it is. And people were like, oh, I looked at this guy's page, and he thinks the mountains were alive at one point in time. This is ridiculous. Basically, I as a person, I as an individual focus of energy, a point of energy, am entirely judged morally, and all of my values being judged because I have decided to look into an alternative idea that doesn't agree with mainstream instruction. And it's not even really mainstream thought, it's mainstream instruction. It's what we are all instructed to think and to feel, and we are told, here are your answers, which is the same thing about the system that we live in. So I talked about the system a little bit with this person, and he kept to his stance, and basically I think I made a good point, and I think he thought about it, and the point was that, what would you rather have? If you had complete control of the world and you were able to just snap your fingers and force everyone to agree and share the exact same views and ideas and beliefs as you do, would you exercise that control? Would you exercise that ability? Or would you love the world enough to allow them the freedom to look into it and to walk their own path? And basically he was like, well, I would rather people walk their own path and look into it, basically. And so I was like, okay, good. So the whole thing got a little heated for a moment, and I brought up some points that I feel personally are excellent points as to why I don't particularly lean towards a globe model, or as I call it, the spinning, tilting, wobbling, orbiting, flying, pear-shaped, oblate spheroid shooting in some ballistic trajectory through unknown, uncharted space model. However, it all had a good ending to it, because he was thankful that I helped him to maybe consider the person who's driving in the car ahead of him in traffic, basically. People can be too quick to develop road rage instantly because other drivers are not doing what they are doing or doing what they expect. You never know what's happening in the car in front of you. You don't know the situation. You don't know if somebody's pregnant and on their way to the hospital, or something's going on in that car. Now, it may be that the car in front of you they're just purposefully trying to irritate you, but it's not as likely as factors that play into the world inside of that car in front of you that are contributing to them driving slow or erratically or whatever it may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I like what you just said about everything. Yeah, that was really nice. People forget all this, don't they? And everybody just wants to argue, or yeah, we're a bit of a sad race, aren't we, at the moment?
Well, yeah. Yeah, it seems so. However, I always like to look at there's always a silver lining. There's always good news. If anything, the world is full of potential positive energy. It's full of really good things. Now, not on the surface. The world's a messed up place right now. However, there's a lot of things on the verge. There's a lot of things right there on the edge that I can sense, that I can feel, and that I witness from time to time and experience. And it seems to me, and I don't feel like I'm in the minority when it comes to this feeling, but it seems that there's something happening across the realm where exponentially people are what they say, waking up. People say that everyone's waking up or whatnot. I don't know if the term waking up is the best one, because I feel like it's a constant waking up. People achieve new levels. People constantly are coming across new information and new ideas and opening up to the energetic world, and listening to their intuition and developing more creativity, things that have been shut off from us for so long now. They're starting to peak. They're starting to show themselves, basically. And I get excited about that, because I see our timeline as the point at which the pendulum is nearing its bottom part of its swing. And once it does that, it can only go back up. It can only take us back into better times and better experiences. However, along with, reaching rock bottom, it comes along with a lot of chaos and, negativity, because that's the maximum. That's the most that it can possibly have before it releases itself and it swings back up towards paradise or euphoria, or whatever people would like to call it.
Oh, very nicely said there. Do you think that happens as well, is because you know who you are as a person more, and you know more of the truth than they do? We can't say we know everything, because we don't, but we know more of the truth than they do. So that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, I hope so. I think it does make a difference. That's why I do what I do, because I enjoy being a light on my path. Maybe to help others, so that they can see that light. I don't try to force feed people, or I definitely don't want to go around and shake people awake, and insist and say, hey, wake up, you need to wake up right now. No one likes to wake up in that manner. People naturally wake up as the light gets a little brighter and a little brighter, and you go from the darkness to the light. It's a gradual waking up process. Some people can wake up and just snap right out of sleep and they're good. Most people, I feel, need a gradual waking up, and they definitely, I myself don't enjoy waking up to a very obnoxious and loud alarm clock, nor do I want somebody to splash freezing cold water on me, insisting that it's the time, because they want me to be awake. Now I need to wake up. So what I do is I try to just be a traveling light, and perhaps as I come into proximity with other paths, maybe that light will shine a little brighter, and maybe it'll help them to, rub some sleep out of their eyes and wake up in a way that's more natural for them.
Hey, I like your way. You seem a very quite a placid person, calm person. So that's good. Really like that. Can I just say that Matthew's joined us? Matthew's just joined us.
How you doing?
Hello, Matthew.
How are y'all?
We're good, thank you. I was just going to say, we usually have more Americans probably on the panel than any other country, don't we, Matthew?
I'd have to say so, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Been a little while since I joined you guys, but I figure, I can't really use my video right now just because of where I'm at, what I'm doing, but I can totally talk.
Cool. And obviously you've heard of JayDreamerZ, haven't you?
No, honestly, actually, I have not.
Really? Oh, Jay, do you want to explain a little bit about your channel then, as he hasn't? I mean, everybody in the chat room
I
seems
might
to know.
have seen his channel. I just don't pay attention to channel names that much. I just kind of scroll through and watch what matters.
Okay. Well, hello. Either way.
Yeah. How's it going?
Pretty good. Not too bad. Yeah, I'm not like a seriously famous YouTuber or anything. Even though I joke about it all the time. I always joke about it, because I see other YouTubers, because I occasionally will browse through random YouTube channel, and I want to get like a button that I can press that has like this mockery of those types of people, and I just want to press the button and it goes, I'm a famous YouTuber. I'm a famous YouTuber. Because it seems like people really put a lot of like a lot of value into that, you know. And it's really interesting for me to watch that too.
You re-record the sound on the easy button from Staples.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That could work. So what is it that you usually pay attention to most in your videos and your YouTube channel?
Lately I've been focusing on what I term ancient oblivion, which is essentially, it's kind of along the lines of hidden history, esoteric history, and our forgotten past.
Yeah,
But it's a
some of my
little
biggest
bit different.
stuff, actually. I know what you're talking about. It's what I study deeply right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. All about antediluvian prehistory, esoteric, celestial, astrology, history, geology, physics, engineering.
Yes. Yeah, I like to look into that stuff. I mean, I've seen in the mainstream when they talk about esoteric history or hidden history, you know, they're pretty much staying within our expressed 6,000 year timeline or whatnot back in, you know, they only go as far back as Samaria or Babylon or things of that nature, you know. It
Well,
doesn't
you
seem
got to
to
go
me that they go
antediluvian as
further.
well.
Right. I wish more people would, because there's so much information there that's pertinent and relevant that gives meaning to how we got to where we are today.
Absolutely. Have you studied Thoth at all?
I've read the Emerald Tablets, but not a lot of other material.
I would study Thoth greatly because Thoth, aka Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great, known as the thrice great because he was Hermes, the god of Rome. He was he was Thoth, the god of Egypt, and he was Quetzalcoatl, the god of the South Americas. So Hermes Trismegistus, all on his own, aka Thoth, he was the Atlantean from the continent of Undal, which was a continent between America and Africa before the Great Deluge, and his father was I forget his father's name, but his father ruled in the city of Kior on Undal, and that's where Atlantis basically comes from, the whole concept of it and everything, the Atlanteans and whatnot. Then the Atlanteans, you know, they had their issues with the Nephilim and the Rephilim, who were delving into what is that forbidden art? That forbidden art where you're mixing animal and human genes.
I'm not sure.
Chimera. They were creating chimeras out of humans, and then that's where you get Egyptian gods, you know, half man, half animal, half beast, stuff like that. Nephilim, Rephilim were really doing that, and that was against the laws of nature. So the Atlanteans decided to try to do something about it, but overestimated their own power. And as far as this is all the study that I got, but that's how the Great Deluge actually happened, was antediluvian technology.
Yeah, and I actually find the whole chimera thing to be really interesting because whenever we look at what's happening in the modern world today, when it comes to gene manipulation and gene editing, in order to, you know, make or augment humans by mixing in the animal DNA, you know, you've probably seen that there's companies out there that that's what they're selling to people.
That's what they do right now. Most of the byproducts that people use, the care products, hell, even the food dyes that you have in your food and stuff, that's all animal byproduct. And what they're doing, I mean, they're mixing the DNA with humans in such a way that it's, you know, we're getting all these mixed signals in people right now. We're getting, you know, more birth defects than ever. You know, people aren't supposed to be consuming a lot of the stuff that they are, and they don't realize that it's kind of the same thing. It's a form of alchemy, which is a forbidden form of alchemy, you know, and it's not good. That's why you got to watch what you eat, watch what you do. You got to be careful on, you know, the frequencies that you allow into your life and stuff. There's so much that goes into it. It's insane. But apparently the Rephaim and the Nephilim way back when were masters of this stuff because I mean they were creations themselves, you know, and they were taught by the mighty ones of old, aka the children of light or the fallen. And yeah, yeah, starting to ramble. Have you gotten into any of that though? Yeah.
What's that?
I said you've gotten into all of that though. Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, my focus has been on the Titans literally existing, and like the interaction that the Titans had with the gods as they coexisted at some point in time, and what that was like, and trying to look at it from a non-biased viewpoint, because I know we're very biased at, you know, to basically see the Titans as the bad guys, just like we're conditioned to see, you know, pretty much all of the gods except for whatever one is okay as all the
Right.
being the bad guys or whatnot, you know. But there's probably, like I said, you know, like I was saying earlier, to consider the car in front of you when you're driving. You know, you don't know what's happening there. We don't know exactly what was going on back in those times. Not only that, but I'm absolutely sure.
Oh yeah, we do. We got scrolls and we got, you know, certain artifacts that date back to those days. We've even got journals that date back to those days through carbon dating and whatnot. And they just don't want to say anything to it. Instead, they call them unknown or mysterious codexes, or they call them they give them modern names in order to hide what they truly are, the true meaning of them. You look at them, the language doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. There's drawings in there that don't exist. They've got technology that doesn't exist, all sorts of stuff. So I absolutely believe that they do have that stuff. They just hide it in plain sight through symbolism.
Right. No,
That's where all these.
I would agree with that. When I say we don't know what was going on back then, I mean more like along the lines of morally, like who was right, who was wrong, who was good, who was bad.
Right. That I get, yeah. Well, have you heard that everybody keeps saying that, you know, giants were real on Earth and that the mountains and stuff like that are actually just remnants of giants?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Well,
something
I believe kind of along those lines, except I believe that the mountains and those in which people believe were just giants and I believe those were the actual titans. I don't think those were the giants. Giants were like 36 feet to like maybe 60 feet tall, but they weren't, you know, thousands of feet tall. Those were the titans, I believe, that were made of earth, golems, you know, made of the elements, stuff like that. That's just me personally, but I don't know. My research is continuing and ongoing.
Yeah, so far, it seems to me that there were two race classes to begin with that I could find. There were the El, or I mean, the El were the gods, or the what I call the Elven race, and they coexisted or ended up coexisting with those who came before, which were the Titans or the Titan race. So for me, the Titans are like the size of skyscrapers or somewhere around there. The God race were giant in comparison to us. And then there were offshoots from those two races. You know,
that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, the race of El, meaning electricity or energy, and then the race of the Titans, which were golems and elemental, you know, materialistic. And then just like the stories, you know, God came across the waters, you know, or the material, the matter, the prime materia, and the prime mobile, aka God, the energy, the prime mover. So that would actually kind of make sense in a very symbolic, you know, kind of way. I like that.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much been my focus of study lately, is just trying to piece together, you know, the puzzle, and when it comes to the Titans themselves and what had happened, because it seems to me that it wasn't just all out war between the gods and the Titans, which is how it's sort of portrayed in our world today. You know, that they were just always hated each other. They were mortal enemies from the start. It seems like they may have had some sort of you know, point where they coexisted or attempted to coexist with one another. And there are some things that I don't have record or evidence per se. There are some writings, especially the Nordic writings, that indicate I believe especially in the um, like the Poetic Edda, like it talks about how some of the gods or the El race were ambassadors to the Titans. They would go and they would speak to them, and they would make arrangements, which you would kind of have to do if you have beings the size of skyscrapers and you're, say, 30 feet tall. You would think that these beings who are immortal in comparison with us, who have lived for so long, and at the very least disregard their morality, right? At the very least, I attempt to respect the knowledge that would be accumulated through experience only. That in itself deserves a bit of respect from me, and so I try to honor that and give it to them. So I would assume that if there were a titanic race, and there was a much smaller race, being the giants or the gods of old, that they would have some sort of communication with one another. They would try to work out.
What if you thought about it in a different way? Throughout time, most wars are caused by not the parents or the experienced ones, but by the children, right? The ignorant children of the parents. So if you think about it, if the Titans of old were the skyscraping, materialistic gods of the material world, and then the El or the elder race were the gods of the energy, of the immortal energies, the prime mobile, the movers, then you would think that the subordinates that they created to work for them and to be their, worker race and whatnot were the ones that the war came from, which makes sense because man is an absolute production of those. If that's the case, you know what I mean? Man would be an absolute production. If man is absolute sin and born in sin, then man would be the one who created the war and created all the lies, deceit, and all that stuff, which also makes sense because biblically, the number of the beast is the number of what? A man, and then when Jesus was talking to Satan, he called him a man. He didn't call him an angel. He said, you were the man that walked in the, in the garden, stuff like that. So I would say that it's actually the children, not the two races themselves, if anything.
Yeah, I would probably tend to agree with that as well. Not only that, but that's what the writings indicate. They indicate that the children rebelled against their parents. And now, thinking about it, maybe that's the story. Maybe that's the way it was supposed to play out. Maybe that's what it was going to lead to in order to develop what we call mankind or humankind.
That's why man always tries to that's why man always tries to portray themselves as gods. You know what I mean? And it always says that man, or the new element, the child of God, was the one that rebelled against him, saying he wanted to be like God, right? He wanted to be as the Most High. Well, man has done nothing but portray himself as the Most High. The number of man is carbon 666. So, in every way possible, I think that flesh and material life of man is the satanic element in everything. We have to get over it.
Well, it seems that something had happened around the time when the Titans and the God race began conflict that escalated to war. And just looking at what we have left to us, a lot of people have speculated that we live in a world that, although it has beautiful places and parts to it, it's basically a stripped down world. Our world looks like it's been terraformed or mined out or excavated or things of that nature, right? And according to the legends and the writings and the myths and the scriptures and whatnot, the world itself was a paradise. It was called a garden, which means it flourished with plant life and animal life and sentient beings and things of that nature. It was a nice place, and it looked amazing and spectacular and fantastic. So when we look around today, do we see an amazing and fantastic and do we see a garden paradise? Well, no, we don't. We can see the beauty in what's been left to us, which is great, but it's clearly not what it once used to be. Now it stands to reason that the Titans had the capability to make it the world that we see today, you know, to take it from such great heights and to bring it down into a mined out, terraformed, excavated world. So it begs the question, why? What was the reasoning? Why did they do it? You know, I can't see it in my mind. These immortal beings that you know, lived basically forever and were the parent figures of the extremely intellectual god race or elven race. I can't see them just being these dumb brutes, you know, walking the world, just
I wouldn't think so at all. I would say that I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say dumb brutes, but I wouldn't say intelligent at all. I would say absolutely primal, but in a sense, like, if you were to go out there and you were to see one of these titans, right? And one of these titans is literally controlling an element, you know, whether it be earth, wind, fire, you know, ether, water, whatever it is. They're controlling an element just with their mind. You wouldn't think dumb, idiot, brute or anything like that. But if you were to try to talk to it, try to hold a conversation, try to teach it what a light bulb was or what a candle was or anything, and it just seemed like, you know, had no idea. It's purely primal, but it was absolutely in touch with the materialistic elements that were it itself and which it was in. Then you had the god race, the L, or the electric, the energy, you know, the prime mobile. That race right there would be the hidden race, the race of intelligence, which is frequency, and frequency is the intelligence behind vibration, and vibration is what moves everything and what creates energy and heat and all of that. So now if you take these two things, which came together as one, you know, they met each other and decided to live on the same plane in the same area, and from that, all of a sudden creation happened. That's what I believe. You know, everything was just prime back in the day, the waters all around and everything. And then when the waters and the energy meet each other, then all of a sudden things started happening. Things started, you know, coming of it, whether it was, life or even or a rock or, you know, material, anything like that. When they came together, that's when life came about it. And then from that, you know, the man was created in order to like tend, you know, but that's when war came about because man was, you know, created in a non-pure way. He was created between two races rather than one pure, you know, so man is born in sin right off the bat, impure.
Well, the way that I see, you know, like as far as them being primal, it seems that we're basically taught that we're intelligent, like we are advanced, so to speak. You know, that's one of the things that I was talking about with this guy when I was having this sort of debate with him last night. Was he didn't consider the pyramids to be impressive whatsoever. You know, to him the pyramids are not a big deal, and he said that a car is more impressive than the pyramids. You know, the things that it takes to make a car are way more impressive and amazing to him than the pyramids are. Mm-hmm. And so I asked, well, do you know what the pyramids were used for? And in short, he replied, no. I said, well, do you know how the pyramids were made? Now, he tried to give me his own explanation of how the pyramids were made, but, you know, in essence, he said, no, not really. So I responded, well, then it's no surprise. I understand your position. I understand why you can see a car as being so much more impressive as something that you don't know the purpose of. You don't know why it was made or what it's even for or how it was made. So yeah, I can see how a car is more impressive to you. Now that, to me, that mentality ties in. If we go backwards in time, if we go from a human mentality back to the God mentality or the L race, right? There was a point in time at which the L or the gods ruled humanity. They physically ruled over them. We made temples for them. They stayed with us. They were appointed to be rulers over particular areas in various regions of the realm that we live in. Now, imagine this. Imagine you're a being that is essentially immortal. You're a being that sees these baby creatures that are called humans just come and go and come and go and come and go. You know, you watch them as they age and they begin to outnumber you, and they know where you live. And so they come to you with all of their baby problems and their baby understanding of things, and they come to you and they expect you to take your time and energy to explain and to help and to, you know what I mean? I could understand and relate in some form how a god type figure, one of the El that was ruling over, let's say, ancient Egypt, I could understand how they would say in their intellect and in their experience to come to the conclusion, this is kind of a waste of my time. I have so much more to add. I have so much more to do that I would like to do, things that according to the time I've spent here so far are vastly more important than all of these piddly little problems that the humans are bringing to me constantly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to appoint a representative, and I'm going to allow them to go to one of their own representatives. And if anything really, really, really needs my attention, I'll come in, say once a year, and I'll handle the really important things or whatnot. So for example, if you were to try to, like you were saying, explaining a light bulb to a Titan, right? If let's take it back a step and explain a light bulb to one of the god figures. You're in Egypt, you go before the throne. It's the time you actually have that time to speak to this immensely and in comparison omnipotent being, and to ask them and to talk to them. And then you try to explain to them, something like, I don't know, a cell phone or a light bulb or something that we feel is advanced and, puts us up there. But the God, the El race, having such greater understanding of things, doesn't see the need for the light bulb or for the cell phone or whatever, because they understand that there are better things out there that are so much easier to use or whatnot. So they listen and okay, I hear you, and this is where they are. Now, the God may think to himself, and at this point, I'm speculating, but I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. The God may think to themselves, okay, now, do I take even more time out of my day and my life to try to have this human understand something that they don't even have the baby steps to get to yet, Or would it be easier for me to just go, okay, yeah, I hear you, the light bulb and whatnot. Okay, well, here's how you fix that problem. If they even address it, they may have knowledge and an understanding of the way that the world works so that they can work it in a better way, in a better fashion, So that's how I would see it going to the gods. Now, it seems to me that the same thing would follow suit if the gods went to their parents, the ones who, according to the writings, came before them, to try to explain to them, well, we've got this other technology and, things can work so much better or whatnot. The Titans, I mean, can you imagine? And I'm just speaking to everyone, but imagine if you were a Titan. There's that television show, what is it called? The Battle of the Titans or Clash on Titan. I forgot what it's called. That's the one that shows the Titans. They're all, it just shows the sinew of their muscles and whatnot, and they just eat people all day.
It's called Attack on Titan.
Yes, thanks. So in the Attack on Titan, okay, I'm sorry, I totally forgot where I was going with that.
I know where you were going with it though, man. I actually enjoyed that show, and that show kind of opened that's right after I watched that show, I started looking into the Titan thing a lot more, but it did kind of give me a different idea based off on our government, and for a little while there, I'm not saying right now, but for a little while there, I started looking at the government in a different way, like, hey, maybe they're hiding us, and protecting us from what's beyond the ice wall, and after so many years of hiding and protecting us, it became a power thing because they realized that the protection of the wall itself was good enough and they didn't need to do any more. But now they just had full control over people. So then, that was subject, what is it called? overdone, I guess. They just fed into that as much as possible and allowed the power to corrupt them over time. But what if the government wasn't just pure evil and trying to do all this? What if they were actually just trying to protect us from what's beyond? For so long, I thought about that for a while. I don't really think that anymore, but I did, because of that movie, though.
Now, as far as you had mentioned like the concept of mud fossils earlier, and the Titans, potentially being mountains or whatnot. In that show, the wall that surrounds the city, that interestingly enough kind of resembles ancient Atlantis. But the walls that all surround the city, they're made out of the Titans, and says that the Titans had the ability to harden their skin, and they literally became the walls that
Spoiler
surrounded
alert.
the city. Oh, my bad. Sorry.
I would call that out before doing that, just in case people that are watching haven't seen season 2.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, since it's still fairly new, Attack on Titan season 1 was out for years before season 2 ever even showed up. But yeah, no, keep going, bud. I was just saying.
Yeah, no worries. And so, so we look back into it. There's so much more information that we can glean based on the clues that have been left to us, And when it comes to the Titan race, and I go so far as to say that it wasn't just the Titans that just turned into stone, but there was a way that had happened, and not only that, but it was the entire ancient world. Many people have stumbled across ancient technology that's basically petrified, or they find ancient technology in the rock and it's basically been turned into rock. I've seen thousands of pictures of, there was the No Forest on Flat Earth revelation, the video that came out, and people were like, oh, the mesas, they're all giant trees. And I took that and I said, where else does it go? What are the implications? What else was affected? Then I've seen thousands of videos or pictures from around the world of what looks exactly like gigantic mushrooms all over the place that are petrified. And it doesn't stop there. You can continue to see. Now, I'm not ignorant. I'm not going to just fall completely and just tumble down the rabbit hole without grounding myself whatsoever. I don't look at everything and just, lose myself in my imagination and say, oh, wow, that looks exactly like an ancient computer. So that's what it is, But all of the individual pieces of evidence all become very weighty in total. They become very, they develop more import collectively than they would individually. That pieced together, our own experience in seeing them and experiencing them and feeling them, combined with the ancient records and legends and everything that indicates there was a deluge, there was a worldwide flood of some sort. The oceans are not native. The oceans they don't seem to belong here. They seem very much out of place. And when that had happened around that time, it seems to me that the ancient world itself became rock, became petrified. And this is, for some reason, this is a difficult concept for people to even wrap their minds around as to how an organic being can become petrified. We only think about the bones being petrified because dinosaurs are thrown in our face so much and so often and popularized. For me, the concept of dinosaurs and the whole Jurassic Park and all that stuff seems to be, I would be more inclined to believe that it's more of a cover-up and a distraction from the real truth, which are the fossils that are everywhere.
I've got a killer theory about the dinosaurs. My theory is that the bones, because back in the day there was two main guys that were discovering dinosaurs, and they were so hell-bent on one-upping the other guy that they eventually started creating dinosaurs out of thin air just to say that they discovered them. And they always found never a full set of dinosaur bones. So they actually ended up creating most of the skeletal structure for most of the bones that you do see. And I believe that there really are bones that big, and they really do find skulls like that, except I believe that they are the bones and the skulls of dragons, but not dinosaurs. They had just created these dinosaur beasts out of all these false, dinosaurs these two guys created out of their personal fight. And then because they never found a full set of skeleton, and it's provable too, kind of in a way, because at one site they find a T-Rex, but not the full skeleton. Yet when they put it up in the museum, it's a full skeleton. Site, it's also a T-Rex, except all of a sudden there's new bones in place that's not part of the skeleton they created. So now they got to create a whole new dinosaur instead of just saying, "Oops, we screwed up on the first one." You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I believe they were dragons, not dinosaurs.
Now, that's another thing that I would like to kind of bring up. There's a more popular channel that focuses on the concept of mud fossils, and that's Roger Spur's Mud Fossil University. Have you seen that channel?
Oh yeah. That's pretty well known.
So in his channel, Roger talks about, like, for example, he's seen like a 900-mile long dragon on the earth, and he uses Google Earth, and it looks like a dragon, so it's probably a dragon. I just wanted to just kind of throw this out there for those who are watching, because as with all revelations, all new revelations, and all new topics that come about where people are starting to talk about them and look into them more, there tends to come this division. People always they go to somebody's channel and they say, "Oh wow, this information is really amazing and cool. Oh no, I just found out they're a flat earther. Oh, like now," or whatever it may be. "Oh, I just found out that they used to be an actor," or whatever. Like people jump to these conclusions that now all of a sudden the information that's being given by the channel can't be trusted, because there are these other things that I'm not in line with, or that, I feel are lies or wrong or whatever. And what I would like to encourage people to do is to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. If someone's watching my channel, I would like them to glean from my channel, to take what resonates, to take what makes sense, and to put it in their own catalog in their mind as a reference point. Anything else, put it to the side. Don't even worry about it. Keep it off to the side for reference for some other time, if that time ever comes.
That's actually something that I preach myself, dude. That's perfect. That's perfect thing to preach right now, man. I always try to make a point of saying that, believe nothing that you see and only half of what you hear. Take what I see and let it resonate, and don't take it as, absolute. Never take anything as I say as absolute, because everything I say is my research based off of my life, what I went through, what I studied, and based out of my eyes that I see with, in my brain that I think with. So even if it's absolute truth and I can prove it 1,000 million ways and, to none, then it doesn't mean it's truth for somebody else, because they don't know what I went through to come to my truth. They don't know the connections that I made. They couldn't possibly know, because they don't have my head. They don't have my perception. So you got to use your own head, your own perception to come up with your own answers. That's why I don't believe in giving people the answers anymore. I believe in providing them the means to find the answer themselves.
I was looking at the Google, not Google. I was looking at the YouTube Hangout, but I had paused it, and then I just switched over to the Google Hangout, and I can see your picture now. You and I actually had a conversation a while back about God. Remember that? On I think it was like Issa's channel or someone, or New Channel or something.
We might have, man. I don't know. It's been a while. I talked to, dude, I have a group of over 100,000 people on Facebook. I do this, and then I'm individually talking to people that ask me questions like daily, 20, 30 people a day. So please don't take offense if I don't remember.
No, that's okay. No, it was a really good conversation. It was basically because I think Issa or someone, whoever else was involved, they had more of a religious mindset when it came to spirituality or the concept of God or whatnot. So you and I started talking about it, and I was trying to get us to think about the attributes that we give, and to get specific about what we mean when we say, an all-encompassing being or whatnot. And we had a really good conversation. I remember that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, tying those two in together, right? And I'll just hit the nail right on the head with this one, because it's kind of fun to do. But biblically speaking, the Bible says that we come from and we're made from the clay of the earth. Now, I was having a really interesting conversation. I was trying to talk with my mom. You know, my mom's semi-open-minded to some of the things that I discuss, and other things are very difficult for her to believe. But back when I was like a hardcore Christian, I talked about it until eventually my mom became a Christian, you know, and now I've grown away from that. You know, I'm on a different path right now, but I take all of that I learned with me, right? So my mom was over here, and you know, I showed her my little, what I call breadcrumb. It's my little 3-minute video, basically giving mud fossils in a nutshell, right? And she was like, I don't know, you know, that one's a little harder to swallow. And so I'm like, okay, well, you know, it was hard for you to swallow that giants existed until you read it in the Bible, because she took the Bible, you know, word for word. Like, if it says it in there, then it must be true. So I was like, okay, well, let's talk about the concept of the ancient world turning into stone, you know, and I would like to present it biblically, you know, for you, so I can use things that you already connect with and already understand, so as to leave that trail of breadcrumbs for you to follow, picking up one at a time. You know, I'm not just going to take you straight there, so that you can develop it in your mind and weigh it out for yourself as we go, you know. And so I was talking with her about the mud fossils, and in a nutshell, we got to, the Bible says, I'm like, God created humankind from the clay of the earth. And she's like, okay, well, God can do whatever he wants to do. And I was like, yes, that's the point. If this being that you referred to as God can, which is the potential energy, can do anything, or when it comes specifically to the creation of the human race, if he or she or whatever could have made the human race in any means, by any means, in any way, in an infinite amount of ways, the question that I ask is, why was this particular way, why was this one specific method used, using materials that already existed? And, you know, she was like, well, I don't know. What's your point? And so my point was, well, if we were to create a human being today from scratch, what materials would we need? We would not snap our fingers and one would just poof into existence. We would not wish a human into existence. We would take materials that we currently understand, and we would use those, because life comes from life. We would use those. Let me ask you
this. With that same exact thing that you're talking about right now, ask yourself this question: how would we create man, and then how would we create woman? Because out of the infinite number of ways and everything that you just named off that you could make a human, man was formed. He was not created. He was formed of the clay. And woman was not formed of the clay. She was formed of a man's rib, not of the man's heart, not of the man's brain, not of any, you know, but the rib. And not just, you know, that, but the fact that she was pre-created from an already formed something, rather than from the same material man was created from itself. So you gotta, you know, really dig deep into that. I like where you're going with it. It just brings up more questions in my end.
No, I think that's a great question. And you make a good point. The woman was created from materials that already had the building blocks of life, right? DNA. Or RNA.
Yeah.
So if man was taken from the clay and fashioned and formed from the clay itself, then that stands to reason that there may have been materials or the building blocks of life in that clay that were used or extracted in order to continue building the human form.
Absolutely.
Now, if the Titans once existed and the ancient world became petrified and turned into mud and rock and, you know, mountains and other geographical features that we have today, then it's not too far of a jump to say that the DNA of the Titans was already in the clay, that the gods themselves essentially reproduced the Titans, modifying them to their own desire. Right. And then, of course, that's going to bring up all kinds of morality questions, which I'm absolutely sure that the ancient gods had held councils. You know, I mean, if we debate over petty things in what we call our version of morality, Imagine the councils, imagine the debates that went on between these immortal beings when it comes to creating a new life form here. Also creating a new life form that may carry the DNA of the beings they just got rid of. Also, another question would be souls, spirits, points of energy. You know, if something had happened that was catastrophic, and if our world was sealed off, which many speculate that it was, that we may be under some sort of quarantine or there's some sort of a boundary, does the boundary also apply to spirit, to souls? You know, does it disrupt the tool known as reincarnation? Does it disrupt it? Does it keep all of those spirits and souls here so that they would have to basically reincarnate or find another form? So that brings up the question, could they possibly re-enter into the bodies that we're now currently creating? If so, how do we limit them so that they don't go back to that, you know? Or how do we guide them in being different and being better? You know, just questions of morality and should we do this? And okay, if we've decided to do this, what guidelines will we give ourselves? What will we go by? And how will we respect the life that we've created? What part will we play in their development? You know? And so it's no surprise to me that if the ancient Titan race were the terraformers of our world, and they were the excavators, and they mined things out and seemed to, quote unquote, destroy the world, which, according to the legends, were the forest home of the elven race. And that's why you see the elves always living amongst the trees and the forests and things like that. That means that the Titans now threatened the habitat of the El race or the elven race, right? Now, if let's just say that some of us carry Titan DNA passed down to us, which I also talk about, you know, a very strong possibility that we also carry the L DNA or the elven DNA. And that, for me, that perfectly explains anomalies in, at the very least, the physical makeup of the various races that exist today. You know, I'll give you an example. When it comes to like the Asians and those around the Ring of Fire or the Pacific Rim, they tend to have these slanted eyes, which no one has ever been able to adequately explain to me in a way that makes sense, you know. But however, it seems that we would also carry particular inclinations of attributes of these beings who came before us. So don't we also kind of destroy things in the world or tear them down in order to create something different, or, you know, to change the world? We basically, we follow suit, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody, of course.
Sounds like the place we're living in, doesn't it, already? Sounds like the place we're living in now.
Right. And that's how I see it so far. It seems like that is the place that we're living in now. Now, it's not all bad news, though, right? It seems like everything is just getting worse. You start off with the grandfather gods, the Titans, right? They come into the world, they help to create it, to make it, to adjust it, or whatever, according to their, you know, their purpose of what they feel their purpose is. And then a new race is introduced, a new class of beings, which are the God or the El race. And they come in and they exist within that world that had been created and set up and whatnot. But then they start to react to the continual agenda of those who came before them, and it throws them off base a little bit. And then the human race is introduced. And after we basically play our part in putting the world back together and being the builders, excuse me, being the builders of the world, now we've come to the point where we are everywhere. We are, you know, the main population in the world today, and everything just looks so bad. And so we tend to point to ourselves and to blame ourselves and to say, you know, wow, look at the human race. It's just so bad and whatnot. But there is something that I feel is very crucial and special and significant and different when it comes to the human race. And for me, this was the reason why there was this conflict between the gods when it came to humanity and how they would be treated and what would the interaction with the gods and humanity be like and things of that nature, is because they saw or knew something about us that had this potential to be, basically more amazing than themselves and the Titans who came before them. And for me, that's the silver lining. That's where I see humanity going. Although we blame ourselves and we are responsible for much of the world's evil or disparity or the bad shape that we're in right now, and this is coming from, my intuition and my feelings on it, but I feel like there will be out of us, out of the destruction, out of the chaos that we have caused, will bloom those humans who have the ability to take us into a new place, to change the world, to encourage others to be lights and things of that nature. Kind of like, on the Matrix, when Neo wakes up or whatever, he used to be one of them and he used to be asleep, but he started to wake up. And as he woke up and he saw the world differently, being a human that was born within the Matrix, Neo was prophesied to be somebody that would wake up out of it and then share what he experienced and his alternative views with everyone else. And that's basically what he threatens the agents with at the end of the first movie. He says, I'm going to hang up now and I'm going to share all of this with everyone else. I'm going to give them the information that you have withheld. And then he leaves it at that because he understands what naturally will occur once people have the information, once enough people have the information, because people had it, but it wasn't enough to sort of push everything to its breaking point, to push humanity to the breaking point where we decide collectively to rise up, to change things, to take action into our own hands, And it seems like we're in that area right now where those individuals are sort of waking up out of the Matrix and they're saying, hey, I'm going to go share this with people. And when you experience me, when I come into your path in life, you're going to know I don't belong as a part of this Matrix. You are going to know and understand that I don't work according to the Matrix anymore. And that itself is going to be a light. Now, the light's going to attract more agents. The light's going to attract those who would try to hold on to their control and their power. And so they'll amplify it. That's just the natural instincts. They're going to amplify it. They're going to ramp it up and try to really lock down on mankind. However, it's a vain and worthless attempt because it's inevitable that humanity will gain back our importance.
Do you think that it's just happening, that the time is now? For all this understanding of what everything means, it's all coming together now.
Right now, we're in a time of transition.
Yeah.
We were in the age of Pisces for so long, and then now we're transitioning into the new era, the era of Aquarius, and that's where okay. So this is the way that I see it, like in the age of Moses, Jesus came along, or Yahusha came along, and brought in the new age, the age of Pisces. And in the beginning of the age of Pisces, where everybody, and this is what I remember as in my past too, is everybody focused on the fish, which is the sign of the Pisces, but also the sign of the life of Yahusha, or the Son of God. And then towards the end of Pisces, which just passed, it was only the cross. You only ever saw the cross everywhere, which was the death of Jesus, or the death of Pisces, the end of that era. Now we're in a new era. So with that in mind, there's got to be, a new figure to come around to be a new master, a new teacher, or whatever, the new era. Or it's going to be just as the Bible predicted. The Bible says, when he returns, he'll have a name upon his crown that nobody knows. And a crown is another great thing to call a title, because when you have a crown, you're a king, which gives you a title, so the name upon his title, nobody will ever know. Until his return. So when he comes, it's either, a new embodiment of the same spirit that was, or it's a new teacher altogether. But when you start talking about all this new, people start screaming new age, new world order, new this, do that. It's like, well, there's differences between those things. You've got psyop, you've got the Satanist program, and then you've got the actual thing that's going to happen no matter what. It doesn't matter if people want it to happen or not. The new age is going to happen. That's just time. Time doesn't stop for anybody. It's just up to you whether or not you're going to see 6s or 9s. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to answer the question, you know, like, are we there? Are we in that age or whatnot? My response is, you know, twofold. One, you can look at the world around and you can wait for things to change, and you can wait for signs, and you can wait for everyone to collectively jump on board, or the 100 monkey effect, and, you know, we can wait to see what unfolds. Or we can decide this is the age of Matthew. This is the age of Karen. This is the age of JayDreamerZ. This is the age of John or Joe or Bill or Wendy. This is the age because I am going to this is my life, you know, and my life actively changes the world as it is, and even more so the future that's to come. So yeah, the age is now, the time is right now, you know, and that's, I try really hard to encourage as many people as I can to accept accept who they are, to accept the change that they can make in their own lives. You know, it's interesting, you know, we gain information and we come across information, and then we end up talking about the information, or maybe we'll look into the information. But then the time comes where we ask personal questions. We examine ourselves. We hold ourselves up to the mirror, you know, and we take a good look at our reflection, and then we decide who we're going to be going forward, given this information. What life changes are we going to make individually in our own lives, in our loops, in our daily experiences, in our interactions with other people, and even more important, how we interact with ourselves. Because once individuals accept it and own up to the change that they're experiencing, you see, they gather the information, and so they say, oh, well, there's things are changing, you know, because the information's out there and now I've acquired it. Well, now the information itself is energy that's potential. How is it going to become kinetic? What are individuals going to do in their own lives to break free? You know, and as people stop waiting on others to break free and just start doing it on their own, in their own lives, in small ways, they'll start doing it in bigger ways and bigger ways until eventually, like I said, though, there comes something to meet that. But yeah, I think that we are in that time. I'm in that time, you know, in my life, that this is the time of awakening. This is the time of change. And I try to keep it in my conscious mind and be aware of it as much as I can, because we also deal with other things that we can't really see and we don't really know much about when it comes to, for example, forgetfulness, just simple forgetting. You know, we're constantly forgetting. We have poor memories, and that's not natural. That's not the way that it doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't hit home to me. It feels like I should remember much more than I have been remembering, that I do remember. Now, it's interesting because the more I consciously tried to keep in mind that it's easy for me to forget the things that I come across, especially when it comes to feelings, right? We can learn a lot of information, but we tend to forget about the feeling that comes with it when we learn it. For example, if you watch an inspiring movie, you know, Braveheart, for example, you can watch Braveheart and you just get in that. You feel it, you know, you're connecting, and there's purpose and there's meaning and there's something worth living for. And then the movie's over. And then perhaps you're silent for a while you just consider it and reflect on it. But then all of a sudden life happens, or what they call life. And you're thrown back into the system and you go back into the loops. And, you know, even just the act of going to sleep at night and then waking up in the morning, now you're distant from where you were, and the feeling that you had, that passion that exists within you, that emotion that was balanced out with the information that you had as well, you know. And that's something that I try to be more aware of, because the more I'm aware of it, the more I think about it on my conscious mind, the less I forget it. And when I do forget it, it takes much longer, and and it doesn't completely go away. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I think we've got too many other things on our mind, and like you said, that's why you like the nighttime, because it's quiet, and then you can just think without all these other things going on, which they love having there, don't they? Our phones, not just that, just outside people. Yeah, I like the way.
Best.
All to keep us away from where we should be, really. I mean, people are beginning to really wake up to this. I mean, you see this as a spiritual thing, don't you, Jay?
Oh yeah, you can say spiritual. You know, I look at things in the spirit as more energetic, but yeah, it's totally spiritual. It's in everything is spiritual. Everything is energetic, and it starts there. Well, no, it doesn't really start there. It starts in the potential energy arena, right? And then it becomes manifest. So the question really is to the individual, what are you going to do now? Are you content with just the information? Are you content to have the potential but not to exercise it? Do you have the longing to exercise it, but you just don't know how? You know, you have to think of so many different ways. So I would encourage people, and I do on my channel from time to time, to find small ways to just break free, you know, to do something slightly different. I'll give you an example, right? When I leave Walmart, there's always the receipt checker person, right? I had made the decision because my life before I made this decision was to acquiesce and to just stop and to give them my receipt and to let them mark it with the highlighter and to go about my business, and nobody would say anything and there wouldn't be any waves and I wouldn't cause any trouble or whatever. And I did that. But then one day I realized that's something small that I can do, that I can change, is to not present my receipt when they insist upon it before I'm leaving. I can say, you know, no thanks, and continue walking because I'm confident that I already made the purchase. I don't have to do this. I'm not obligated to or anything. And when I first did it, I was very nervous. I was scared. I was, you know, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew that this was wrong according to society. I knew this wasn't the way that it's supposed to go. And so something may come of that. And something did come of that. You know, for the first few times, you know, it was a whole thing where, you know, somebody had followed me out and basically accused me of stealing and, you know, all of this. And they do it in a loud way so as to make an example of those who are trying to break out. They want to keep you from breaking out. However, they want even more for witnesses, for those who are watching, not to be encouraged by your actions, but they want to make an example of you. But it usually will have the opposite effect on some of the people. Some of the people will see those actions and be encouraged and inspired. And it may be the tool, it may be the one thing that helps them to see what they had never seen before, or to consider what they had never even considered before. They didn't even know it was an option that they can do that. Now they know. Now it's something that they may consider or think about. Maybe they'll just regard every time somebody walks out of Walmart, and they'll just watch and they'll wonder at it. And then maybe some of those people in turn will also not show their receipts and say, I don't need to do this, thank you, and go about their lives. That's a small example of little things in my life that I've chosen to do. And the more I practice, the more I continue, the more confidence is built up. The more I'm confident, not that I'm not going to get, you know, any flack or get in any trouble, but I'm confident in myself. You know, I'm building self-confidence, and I'm trusting in myself, saying, you know, I'm a good person and I know what I'm doing is okay. I'm going to go ahead and do it. And not only that, but I'm going to go ahead and keep doing it, knowing that other people are watching. And maybe my light will shine even brighter at those particular moments where I decide to stand for something. When other people have told me to bow down, to lay down, to just accept it, you know, to allow others to make the decisions for me, to do the thinking for me. When I was having this debate with the Ball Earth person on their channel yesterday. You know, his whole thing was like, you know, people don't need to talk about flat earth because we have people who have already done this and they're scientists, and we have people in, you know, who've done all the research, and they basically, what he was saying is they speak for us. So I pointed out, isn't it nice for you to have the freedom to go ahead and talk about, you know, the earth being a ball? Because those same people can easily take that freedom away from you and say, hey, we've already got people talking about this. This should be a non-issue. Don't even talk about it. You know, if we need you to know about it, we'll put it on the news or whatnot, you know. But they have the freedom to do that, to look into things and to think with an alternative mind.
Yeah, because we have to live with them, don't we? And we're not nasty and horrible to them. You know, like they already believe this different way. We don't, you know, I believe though that it's better than, you can't hammer it into someone. They've got to wake up, really.
Right.
It's got to be them that does it.
You said we're not nasty and horrible to them. That, now, just to be fair, that's coming from your perspective, right? Other people may have an opposing perspective where they say, oh, I can't take this, you know, like, let's say I do a video about the earth being flat, and I just like to use that one because it's so controversial, you know. If I do a video about the earth being flat, in my mind, I'm helping, I'm guiding, I'm aiding, I have good intentions, you know. But somebody else on the other end of that spectrum may see it as an attack and abusive or unworthy or unimportant or things of that nature. Now,
I understand what you mean, because if you turn around and tell someone their whole life's a lie, maybe they think you are being horrible, when really you're just telling them the truth. But what I'm trying to say generally is that we have to walk around and be with these other people, you know, nicely just trying to explain something. And 99.9% of anything around me, these people get really like angry with you. It's not your anger, it's their anger.
Right. Now apply that same understanding to the world of the Titans, right? Imagine, this is where I was going with this earlier, but imagine if something could be done to change you, whoever is out there listening as individuals, if you all of a sudden were changed into a Titan, if you grew in size and you became the size of a skyscraper, how would that change your life? Wouldn't your priorities shift drastically? You know, would things like living in a house or having a job or things of that, would those have the same import if you were 1,000 feet tall? Or would your priorities shift? Would the things that are important to you on your path in life shift? And if they did, how would those down on the ground see it? Would they be understanding?
I think we've already learnt that one, because when we were in the globe world, and it's not that we don't have our phones and that, but so many other things, like you said, that man's car, it's much more important. Then when you start waking up or learning or understanding or whatever it is that happens, the spiritual consciousness, the coming together, other things become more important. That's the difference, isn't it? So with consciousness, hopefully for some of it, it's shifted. It has shifted anyway. So yeah, that's the same sort of thing like you're talking about, isn't it? Their consciousness was, they were on a different everything was different, wasn't it? Their mission was different to ours. Maybe this is about, it wasn't all going to come together till now. That's
right,
what I'm wondering.
So
Yeah.
the past, understanding and having a better, a bigger picture of the past, especially the past when dealing with how our realm came to be the way that it is today, gives us meaning for our existence, for our present point in time. It gives us meaning, and then it gives us purpose for where we go from here. You know, do we learn from the mistakes of the past? Do we change? Do we even think that we have the ability to change the world? That's something that I'm going to try saying more often, because people, I feel like people would benefit from hearing this. But so many people out there, at one time, myself included, did not believe that they had the ability to change the entire world. They don't. They're weighed down by this feeling of loneliness, that they're unimportant, that they can have no effect simply because they can't, turn into a Titan and go ahead and just take action into their own arms or whatnot. But people are taught to feel insignificant, as if we cannot and are not changing the world in the future. Every single thing that was done in the past by individuals has brought us to where we are today. Literally our conversation right now, those who are watching our hangout right now, various factors went into play. Energy was set into motion by individual beings who are having an active effect on the present. So, what effect does our present and our actions that we take now have on the lives of those who will come afterwards? You see? You're actively changing the world. There is never a point when you are not actively changing the world.
It's really nice to hear someone really positive come on and say these things as well. Very positive person.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it is positivity because it's nice to hear, right? It's encouraging, but it's also reality. We have the ability, and we practice all the time, and every little thing that we do, it has an effect. People here have heard about the butterfly effect. If you go back in time, don't step on a bug or whatnot because it can affect the future. Hypothetically speaking, that's true. And so those. How much more important or I don't want to say more important, but how much of at least equal import or value do the quote unquote sentient beings of our past, how are they actively manipulating and changing our very lives? We are being affected by those who have already come before us. And so we are actively going to affect, and we do actively affect those who will come afterwards. Not only that, but let's just say, reincarnation can be a touchy subject for some, but for the sake of argument, let's say reincarnation is real and that people reincarnate into various bodies lifetime after lifetime. If a person's going to reincarnate again into the future, which would be the future, from now, once they die sometime in the future, wouldn't you like to set things up for yourself? Wouldn't you like to start?
I actually do believe in reincarnation.
It's going to be one of my questions, that was with CERN and stuff like that. I was going to ask you that kind of question.
What's your question about CERN?
Well, just about like entities. There was a couple of questions because obviously looking at some of your work and talking with another member, it's a bit like she said, ask him what's fantasy and what's real, and then of course this bit about with entities or reincarnate, whatever it is with CERN that they're using CERN for.
Okay, so the way that I see existence is that everything is connected, everything is truth, everything is real, everything is fantastic. For me personally, I try to keep it in my conscious mind that there is no difference between these things. Now that's at one level of thought, and as I go throughout my day, I'm not constantly 100% JayDreamerZ all the time, just in deep thought about everything. Actually, sometimes I ground myself purposefully just to balance myself out. However, the world we live in, your existence, my existence, is fantasy. It is reality. It's just as real as an individual experiences. To me, there is no dividing line between what is known as fact and fiction. There's a difference between what we call truth, which that's an interesting one, just the concept of truth. Someone once asked the famous question, what is truth? And the thing is we may come to some sort of interesting revelation about something, and then all of a sudden, wow, that's truth, man. We've got all the evidence for that. That is the truth. But then as we grow, we may come across new information. We may come across more information that give us more to the story. So our version, our idea of ultimate truth or fact is subject to constant change, or it is constantly changing. I mean, that's one of the universal laws, that everything is constantly changing. Everything is constantly moving about, and thus it's growing, it's changing all of the time. So yeah, right now, everything is fantasy, everything is truth. And those things that we call lies, because I know a lot of people out there will be like, we tend to get more acquainted with our polarized view of existence or life or the world around us or even ourselves. And so we tend to find a place on that pole that fits, that we enjoy, that we like, that we are like at that particular point in time. And we just, we sit down and we plant our flag and we make a nice little comfy area in that particular place, that region on the pole, on that polarity, right? But everything, and this is getting a little deeper into the, into spiritual ideas and energetic concepts and stuff, and the thoughts about God and who is God and who are we. But speaking for myself, everything is all energetically connected. There is no such thing as separation. There is no such thing as space or emptiness. Everything is filled. Everything is full. Everything is touching everything else, and everything is everything else. But we have this wonderful tool that's been introduced, this fun thing that we get to play with in this game of life called separation, right? Where we can experience things as what seems to be an individual, and we can choose not to recognize the connectedness that we have with other things around us. And we can use that, and we can glory in that, and we can dwell in it, and we can experience it for a time. But then we grow from that, and we start seeing the connectedness. When you see connectedness in all things, you run out of violence, you run out of war, you run out of hatred. These things dissipate, they go away because they're meaningless, because you don't want to hurt yourself. You don't want to insult yourself or make fun of yourself. You have sympathy for yourself. You're empathetic towards yourself. If anyone can relate how you feel, it's you. So you put yourself in your own shoes, and you can look at those things that appear to be different or outside of yourself, and you connect with them and you relate to them. And now you've developed a genuine care for those things as if they were a part of yourself. So people talk about, lies or the Illuminati or, some sort of extreme. Well, I personally don't believe in lies. I believe in the truth. And the truth is everywhere. Everything is made from the truth. Everything is made from that one all-encompassing energy. So what is a lie? Well, it's only the manipulation and the presentation of truth due to polarity. It's under the veil of separation. The hologram, the manifestation, the trick. It's basically a trick that there is anything separate from anything else. And so we see truth behind that veil, and it's given to us in different ways, in puzzle pieces, in breadcrumbs. And it falls to us, because we've really done it to ourselves. If we're all connected and we're all one, then there are no enemies, there are no bad guys. The enemy is the self, And so we've done it to ourselves. Well, if we've done it to ourselves, there must be a purpose. There must be a reason why we've done this to ourselves. So let's play it out. Let's see what happens. Let's learn from it. Let's go ahead and put the pieces back together. Those pieces are truth, seemingly fragmented, rearranged, but they're still truth. That's why I say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is so much to gain from others, and not just sentient beings or whatnot, not just humans or humanity, but from the world around you. The wizards and the sages, the wise men, the druids, of our past, all of these wise people, these teachers, they could give an entire lesson on life by holding any object in their hand, because the object encompasses everything else. You know, this is the way that, according to legend, Merlin took King Arthur under his tutorship and taught Arthur. He taught Arthur the connectedness and the oneness and all of these things, and how that connectedness can be used, because it's yourself, and you can move yourself, you can manipulate yourself, you can make a conscious thought change the physical world. And because you're connected to other things, you can manipulate the so-called other things, because it's not other, it's yourself. You're already touching it. You're already experiencing it. You are already there, wherever there is.
Do you know what I just thought of, by the way? We've been looking, obviously, we have Flat Fred on, and he's into trees. And obviously, because they're emitting frequencies and stuff like that, and obviously they're chopping loads of them down. But trees all connect, don't they? And that's the bit that's missing from the people, is the people aren't connecting like the trees through this, whatever it is, consciousness, whatever. So that's what this is about, isn't it? Trying to connect us and hopefully change things for the future.
Right, and I would agree with that, with one extra addition. I'm not certain that it's about trying to connect, but realizing we are already connected.
Yeah, we are already connected. Yes, thank you very much, Jay. Yeah, well, the chat room are really enjoying this, and anyway, there's been a shout out in the chat room for you, Jay, because it's nice someone so positively talking about this.
Well, this
you can argue, can't you, about what shape and everything it is, but we all know we're on some flat realm. So the next thing is about the people, isn't it? How we go forward with. And for maybe for some of us, it doesn't matter about the past, but a lot of us, the past matters. Like here, the pyramid people were and stuff,
right.
Like so much hidden from us. Well, I like to know all this. And but the thing is, I don't think I was expecting like anybody else that it was just so many lies. Everything is a lie. Everything's kind of back to front. Just crazy.
Well, for me personally, the subject, according to the thing here, is flat Earth, right? So for me, when I looked into the flat Earth theory, or the world being flat, or I like to call it just our plane of existence, right?
Hey
when
guys,
I looked into that,
real quick.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say goodbye. I got to roll out. I got to get back to working. It was a nice little break, but I got to get back to it. Got lots to do. So it was nice meeting you, Jay. You're a pretty smart guy. I like the way that you think about things. So hopefully I'll be able to see you on more often. And it was good seeing you too, Karen, and everybody else that
love you, Matt.
on too.
Okay, man. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, guys. You guys are awesome. Yeah, love y'all. We are dancers. Bye.
Yeah, we are dancers. Sorry, Jay, you don't know. Very quickly, you don't know that one. We have Jay who comes in, and he's into syncretism, and he's doing ballet, and he likes Santos. And when we have a hangout now, we have to go 1, 2, 3. We are dancers, okay? So a similar sort of thing to what you're talking about, just another way of putting it. Meaning we are free. We're connected. But please do carry on. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You don't have to apologize. So this is, see, how do I explain this? Some people would call this a calling. Some people would call this their purpose or whatnot. This is my calling. It's my purpose. This is the thing that I set on fire for. I emblaze, and I get so passionate about just sharing things with other people, and knowing that it's helping other people, sharing my path in particular, and sharing the things that I come across, things I stumble across, and things I experience. And I enjoy doing it so much. And honestly, I've had such a welcome reception since I've started my YouTube channel that this is what I do now. Like I decided recently to basically I quit my job and I am devoting my time to writing my first book and putting much of what we've already talked about so far into this book and selling the book and then hopefully getting out there so that I can give presentations or lectures or things like that, so I can actually go around to various places in the realm today in order to lift up others and to encourage them and to share the same passion and zeal that hopefully, now that I am entering into a new phase of maturity in my life, balancing that out with logic and reasoning and experience as well. But that's what I am doing. And that's like I said, I've made small changes in life, small attempts, small practices in getting out of the loop, in escaping the loop, in order to be and allow my potential to manifest itself as full as I possibly can. And when I left my last job that I had, one of my bosses, he was absolutely respectful when I explained it to him like this. And his advice was to me, you know what, man? I want you to do this, and I want you to do it 100%, 110%. Give this everything. Put everything you can into this, because I know that this is what you're meant to do. So give it that respect and never stop and go 110% until you can't go anymore. And I'm going to.
So you'll be a sort of historian then?
I am a historian. I think that we all are. Those of us who look into history, and I know what you're saying, but yeah, I'm not big on titles and templates and labels and signs and things of that nature. I'm a scientist. I'm a historian. I'm a philosopher. I'm a world changer. And in my opinion, so are you. And so is everybody else who's watching right now. It's just, what are you going to do? How far are you going to go? You have limitless potential and capabilities. So when are you going to start? That's the question that I ask myself. When am I going to start? Why am I waiting? Why am I putting this off for so long? Let's do it, and a part of that is having the sense of mind to allow things to be set up on my side in my life that I live here, so that I'm financially stable and I don't end up homeless or things of that nature. And I get contributions and donations from subscribers and viewers, and people support me, and I feel like that's a part of the law of attraction. When you dive into what you're meant to do, for what you have set up for yourself to do beforehand, and you trust in it and you go for it, and you're wise about how you do it, then everything that you need falls into place. All of money falls into place, bills all fall into place, information falls into place, books have seemed to just land out of the sky, just fall from the sky and land in my lap. Just the right information at just the right time.
Yeah, like a puzzle happening. Something, oh, there's another bit of the puzzle. Oh, that kind of thing.
Yes, and so that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. Is I'm devoting myself at this particular moment in time on this path to putting those puzzle pieces together and presenting the small pictures that I've been able to construct or reassemble for others to see, for others to consider, or for them to at least to make the information available. I am not the type of person. I absolutely believe in freedom of ignorance. I love others. I respect and honor others to the point where I respect their ability to be ignorant and remain in their ignorance, to not have the information. So I don't go out of my way to, you know, flag everyone down and to hand out pamphlets and flyers and say, hey, you know, did you know this or that? I make it available, and I make myself available so that those who are seeking the particular information that I offer can easily access it, you know? And that's something that's the opposite of how I feel the world powers, how they exercise things. They exercise through force. They force other people. You're going to hear this. You're going to weigh in on this. You're going to make a decision right here and right now about this, or we're going to keep doing things to manipulate you until you do come to terms with this. I don't believe in that. You know, I believe in allowing people to live in their life and walk their path without me impeding upon it. But I make myself available, so if their path crosses mine, they can see that I've set up shop and I have things to offer. And if they'd like to, they can go and they can come and they can receive the things that I have to offer. But I will never force it upon somebody. And I also believe that the secrets that exist in our world work in a similar fashion. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to putting yourself, to having the mind of a god, having the mind of the ancient elven race that came before us. You know, it seems to me that some of them, they split into factions. There were some who decided to go ahead and force information upon people, and then there were those who offered it up in methods such as metaphors, legends, stories, movies, books, whatever it may be. They put the information out there, and they're not saying this is the way that it is, and if you don't believe it, you're going to hell, or you're going to die, or we're going to lock you up or kill you or humiliate you. They say, hey, here's some information. You can be amused by it. You can not consider it whatsoever, or you can take it into consideration and use it as a tool. Put it with the other information you've acquired so far and go from here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think this whole thing they've got us about is not being here and now anyway. It's always living in the past, fearful of the future, fearful of everything. You can't be, they don't want you here and now. And people who are waking up or awake, they're here and now.
Right. It seems to me, I read a really good story when I was a kid. Like I said, these things have fallen into my lap for all of my life. I have subconsciously attracted these things into my life based on my purpose and my meaning. I read this book. You may have heard of it. It's called The Phantom Tollbooth.
Right. No, I don't think I have. I'm really sorry.
Okay. Well, it's a children's book, and it's a quite large children's book, maybe for like those in early middle school or something. However, there's a point where this character, he travels to these various cities. One's a city that that's full of mathematics. It's a mathematical city. He goes to another city, and it's an alphabet city or whatnot. He goes to this other city where there's this beautiful music playing. And the music takes the form of various colors and smells and images and things of that nature. But the inhabitants of the city, they don't see the beauty because they've all been trained to look directly at the ground because they feel like they get where they're going faster. So everyone is just looking at the ground beneath their feet as they move along on their path. And that's what I see when I look out at the world. I see those who are not looking around in awe like a child, taking in the amazement of, just talking about mud fossils, the geographical features of our world, the anomalies that have never been explained to us, that open up the creative side of our mind to try to figure out what it could have been or what it is. I see people looking at the ground wherever they go. They're just looking at that one moment. They're looking at their present. They're not looking at where they're going. They're not looking at where they've been. And they're certainly not looking and appreciating the fantastic world that we live in today. A world that is encompassed and filled with magic, with energy, where we're all connected, where anything is possible.
Oh
and
yes,
so
you're right. I'm clapping because it's so well put, but it is sad, isn't it? But a lot of people, like, I was in an abusive relationship. I learned to look at the ground because I couldn't get into trouble if I looked at the ground. If I opened my eyes and I looked around, I was in trouble. So I kept looking at the ground. Anybody in an abusive relationship will know what I mean. But again, we're not allowed to like people, help people. The world's ugly and horrible out there. We're looking at the ground. I agree with you. And that childlike, we're only big children, aren't we?
well, it sure seems like it to me.
We're just big children. And we're acting, the pictures show it all, don't they? Children just pull faces and it's all lovely. And as everybody gets older, they just start looking at the ground, even in the photographs.
Right. Now, you said something earlier in response to that. You said it's sad, isn't it? Right. And that is by all means one perspective that we can have. We can look at it and we can see the sadness in it. We can lower ourselves and we can enjoy the sadness, so to speak. We can dwell in it. We can get involved in it. We can swim around in it for a time. But I've recently been looking at the world in a much different way from time to time, where I see the excitement in it, in the ruin, in the disparity, and the sadness and depression. I get excited about it to a certain extent because I see that something is going to be birthed out of that. People are made stronger by that. The world is going to become a better place because of the sadness and the disparity and the hatred and the malice and all of this stuff. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying, oh, I wish it would always happen. And, I support that. But in a way, I respect it. I honor it. I see it for the tool that it is. It's a tool for us to use to break free, to change, or at the very least to regard it and then to make a decision to be like it or to not be like it.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. It's a bit like it all can look fearful until you do it. But yeah, we all want this change, don't we? There's going to be a bit of all this stuff happening. This change, that's what happens with change. I want the change. I hope everybody else does. It's got to be much better than what we've been living in. And, the mistrust we've all built up and the fact that it made us hate each other, really, not like each other.
Right. So here's let me just point this out. You said, I want the change, right? Want means to lack. So you're saying you lack the change.
Oh dear, am I?
What I'm saying is be the change.
Yeah.
They say be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the change. Choose to see things differently and to see what you can do. When I was a kid, one of the things that was said to me that was just, it felt so horrible. But someone, I think I got suspended in elementary school or something. And one of my relatives told me, man, I think it was my grandmother. She said, you have such potential, but you hardly ever use it, And how true, it really hit home to me. It kind of hurt me a little bit to hear it at first, but those words have resonated with me since elementary school. It's not something I've really brought up or talked about until this point in time, but it was true. She was saying you have such potential. You have the ability to change the world. You have the ability to make life better, And I appreciate that. So that's the thing. Instead of saying, I want to see the world change, change the world, change yourself, change your world, accept what you're learning about yourself. That to me is the metaphor of all of these mirror analogies. You see a lot of mirror symbolism in movies today. Vampires, they can't see their reflection. Well, because they are the type of being that does not want to regard themselves. They don't want to take a look inside and come face to face with what they are and what they're doing. So they don't have a reflection. Those who want to pass through the mirror and get beyond need to pass the test of self. They need to come face to face with themselves, look at themselves right in the eye. And, for some people, if you've ever tried this, for some people, they get uncomfortable. They don't like to look other people in the eye, let alone themselves. They would, I mean, if you just take a good 3 minutes and just stare directly into your own pupils in the eye, you will have an interesting experience, I promise you. But this is the test. It's the mirror. It's coming face to face with oneself and basically meeting yourself for the first time, getting to know yourself. I mean, that's one of the ancient axioms of secret information is know thyself.
Yeah, that's actually it, because without knowing yourself, you can't get to the next stage. And I don't know, for me, it's brought more peace in my heart. That's just what it does. And I just feel quite sort of, I was wondering, like this bit with your book and change, it's because you feel this is your destiny. Is that right?
It's right in part. I feel like everything I'm doing is my destiny. But yeah, it's my drive. I mean, I get so,
oh my goodness, that's the word I had written down. Drive.
yes,
Driven.
It is. I am driven to interact and to share the things that that come to me. Now, some of these things, they come to me from my physical brain. They're things that I have thought about and researched and looked into. And, you know, from time to time, I get people saying, JayDreamerZ, well, what are your references? You know, where did you get this information? As if I need some type of authority to look to quote or to reference, you know what I mean? But the honest answer is sometimes I get the information from myself because I've come face to face with myself. Sometimes I understand I am one and connected with everything else. And so it becomes so much easier to listen to yourself. You can listen, you can tap in to the ether, the one consciousness, the Akashic records. You know, people have various ways of describing it, but the information's already there. All you have to do is realize that you're already there too and get the information that's there. You know, you literally call out to the information like one of your devices calls out to your router for the Wi-Fi connection. It says, hey, I'm requesting this. And then the router, you know, sends the information in a wavelength that reaches the device. You're no different. As a matter of fact, you're probably so much better than a smartphone or a computer or, you know, smart TV. You're simply requesting information. The thing is, we have been taught, or that ability, we've been conditioned to suppress the ability to simply request information, to simply access information, because it's all around us. It's all there. It's everywhere. The information is there. You know, we literally don't need the medium of the internet and the computers or cell phones or things like that to communicate right now. We're doing it right now because that's the way it is at this time. However, there are, you know, things like telepathy, you know, where people can connect, and that's what they do. They connect through the energy that is between the two, that connects the two. And not only do they have, you know, exchange information or talk through telepathically, but they convey emotion, they convey feelings, they convey smells and sounds and colors and all of these types of things. It's simply just opening up to that. And while I talk about that, you know, I know that there are a lot of people, especially in the truth community, that get people who are more religious minded typically, and they throw out a trigger word that affects them really, and they want it to affect other people as much as it affects them, but they just label it New Age. That's the New Age. That's all New Age stuff, you know, as if something about that were bad. Well, the only thing bad about that is the title itself, because to give something a title or a name limits the thing that it is, you know. So they want to find a label for it. They've labeled it, and now they say it with disgust. That's all New Ager stuff, you know. Which is in reality, it's not New Age at all. It's eternal information. It's an eternal experience. It's something that has always been. It may not be something that individual is consciously thinking about or that they want any part of. However, it's all connected. You know, it's not new age witchcraft, evil, simply because it's alternative, simply because it's different than the path that you're on, or the things that you've read, or what's been preached to you at church or whatnot. You know, things like telekinesis or telepathy, meditation, things of that nature. You know, there's something there to all of them because they exist. Just their existence gives it some sort of import. It means that there is something behind it. Now, how the person uses it, what information the person has, you know, and what experience and how it affects other people is all dependent upon a variety of X factors, you know. And quite honestly, you know, I would encourage a lot of people to exercise a little more patience when you come across these new interesting things, not to dive headfirst into them and just, you know, start practicing, you know, say spellcraft or witchcraft or whatever. I mean, people do that subconsciously without knowing it all the time, but to consciously start doing it without really knowing what you're doing is something I would caution against. You know, I mean, there are some people out there that can, and forgive me if I'm getting a little off topic, but
no, can I add something? We
Yeah.
have somebody from New Zealand called James who comes on, who's worked out basically that they've made us live in fear and they're making money out of us through fear. So it's another area of this layer of matrix. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, because I realize that you're very articulate with your words, because you've understood. You just said what the word you're saying. So you've actually said a couple of times to me, but I think that's the word you need, because we're used to now being lazy about our words. But I just would think that this whole thing that we're in, most of us who've woken up, is because we haven't, it happened with children, as children. It was there with us when we were children. And for some reason, it never got closed off, whatever it was. And a lot of people, it's closed off for whatever reasons. You know, because obviously we're not very good parents anymore, all of it anymore, are we? Because of the way we treat people, the generational cycle of this stuff happening. So I reckon that this whole drive you're at was with you as a child. And you're one of these very sensitive people who's not shut it off. Is that about right? So it's frequency, all this totally resonates. And I think those that are waking up, it's the same sort of thing. This consciousness thing we're in.
yes,
Because we can feel each other on the Hangouts.
right. I have a playlist on my channel that, sadly, for me, it breaks my heart, because I have a playlist about universal laws, right? And that's my favorite topic. Really, that's my favorite thing that I have there on my channel. Each video there, you know, has a minuscule amount of views in comparison to talking about the physical, which is the giants and the titans and the flat earth and, you know, things of that nature. So I highly encourage anybody that's looking at my channel, please check that particular series out. It's the Universal Law series. I may do a breadcrumb on it as well, just to sort of shorten the mini videos into one video that hits the nail on the head and gets right to the point. But yeah, thinking outside of the box, you know, thinking for yourself, getting to know yourself, you know, accepting that all of these things in life are not random occurrences. They're not chaotic. They're all happening perfectly at just the right time for reasons that we may access and become aware of, or for reasons that we're unaware of, you know, that guide us and shape us as to having these experiences that we do. Now, when it comes to, for example, the flat earth, you know, I was researching the hollow earth theory, and then I stumbled upon some flat earth videos, and I kind of laughed. And I was like, all right, well, let me see what they can possibly have to even say, you know? And I thought it was going to be ridiculous, but it was compelling. And then once I was compelled enough to, you know, to dig into it for myself and look into things, the evidence became weightier and weightier until I leaned towards the flat earth idea, the plane of existence, as opposed to the spinning pear-shaped ball that we were taught. But then I didn't stop. You see, that's something that I love to see, as I love to see people look at the implications of revelations that they've stumbled upon. You know, so many people stop and they just, we're so used to being told what to think. You know, if you go to school, if you go to college, your professor may just drop a revelation on you and say like, wow, you know, here's this revelation. And then the revelation itself is focused on so that the people in essence become blind to the implications. They become blind to everything else around and they basically stop on their path. You know, they stumble across flat earth, for example, and they're like, whoa, flat earth. They stop. You know, they're just, oh, it's flat earth and the earth is flat and here's the reasons why it's flat, etc. What about the connections? If the earth is flat, what does it mean for history? What does it mean for the other avenues, the other areas where it touches, where it's related? You know, what are the implications of it? Let's look into those things as well, because, you know, the earth being flat or Titans being fossilized or elves having once existed, you know, these are all breadcrumbs. They're all little clues. They're little pieces of a bigger picture, and they're connected to something else. They're always connected to something else. Usually there are other puzzle pieces going all the way around that one particular piece of the puzzle that we've stumbled upon. So what we can do is we can see the piece that we have found, which is, for example, the earth being flat. That's a piece of the puzzle to some people. They pick up that piece. Now, do they see the missing areas on that piece where another piece can connect? I'm not saying do they know what it's connected to, but do they recognize that there is something not there that should be there? Do they see what is missing? Because that in itself is another revelation. That's another path that will take you to the actual piece that's connected to it. And that's, I did a video called Psychological Scotoma, basically saying there's a condition that exists where we are literally blind to the things around us. So we need evidence, right? I want evidence. What's your evidence? Show it to me. I want the physical, put it in my hand. I want to take a bite of it. You know, I need the evidence for it. But there's another kind of evidence. It's the evidence of the missing. It's the evidence of what is not there that occupies a space. There's something that should be there, or maybe there's something that is there, but we don't see it. We don't recognize it. Those are the other puzzle pieces that we are yet to find. And when we pick up one puzzle piece, we can see the indentations on it where another puzzle piece goes. And we can say there's something connecting this one to something else. I'd like to look for the other information. I wonder what the other puzzle piece is. Now, let me take a look at what I can see on this puzzle piece, because that's how we put a puzzle together. We take a look at the picture on it, and we look at the other pieces that are offered. And sometimes we have to go find them. Sometimes puzzle pieces are lost. But we look at the picture on the one that we have found, and we can take what we see and we can find something that is similar to it and see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, then we can come to the natural conclusion that it does look a lot like it. So maybe it doesn't fit directly, but it's in proximity to it. It is another piece of the bigger picture. So we set that piece aside until we find the connecting pieces. But so many people get wrapped up in their one individual piece of the puzzle that they found, you know. Look, I've got the puzzle right here, and they're holding up the one piece. I want, and I look forward to a time when we all come together, offering up our individual pieces, not insisting that the piece is the puzzle in its entirety, not insisting that this piece is the most important piece, but that it is another piece that can connect to your piece or to somebody else's piece.
It's a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
Right.
It's a bit like that, isn't it? Because like just when you get there, you find that something else connects, and then that takes you somewhere else. It's true, but maybe a lot of people they can't handle it. Maybe some of us can. Maybe some of us want to know, maybe not. Because, you know, like, if you don't know who you are, right, and that's where society's got people, so they don't know who they are and what they are and the whole thing,
Yes.
then you're never going to move on to the other bits, are you? So it's like we need to be re-educated again. But, yeah, well...
Sorry, I had my mic muted because I was I was coughing. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Just think that...
Okay, I'm better.
We've got us, like I said, fearful of the past, fearful of the future. Oh, we can't look right now and everything's terrible on the news. It just goes on like that. One of the biggest things you've got to do is turn the telly off.
Right. Well, okay, so have you ever heard of the law of entropy, basically stating everything's falling apart?
It feels like everything is sort of falling apart, isn't it?
Well, that's one way of seeing it. The law of entropy basically says everything is coming apart. Everything is constantly in a state of destruction. But on the other end of that pole is the statement and the perspective that all things are coming together. That everything, or if anything, it's already together, right? But we down here on this level, we're piecing it back together. The reason I bring this up is because when I look at humanity, I don't see people who have stopped growing, that just are just stopped in their path 100%. People move at various speeds, or at least they seem to. And I see humanity at a constant inclination, constantly getting better. Now, I'm not discounting all of the bad things that are happening and do exist in the world today, but if we were to step outside of time and we were able to fast forward the bigger picture, it all comes together. All the pieces fit eventually, and mankind finds their way. And everybody is on that path to awakening, to realization, to becoming self-aware, to becoming better people, constantly becoming a better energy, having a better source through this medium of experience. Now we just compare one another, so it's very easy. It's so easy for us to judge and to say that that person's not awake, or that person is just, you know, dead in their tracks or whatnot. But I don't see that. I see everything as working together for good, not bad, because I don't believe that in its essence, in its purest form, that there is a such thing as bad or evil. That's polarity. It's all experience that works together to bring about the best possible result. Now I fight against the evil and the bad and the corrupt and the lies and things like that. I fight down here on this other level, right? With the understanding and keeping in mind a partition in my mind, a little place where I know it's okay. This is the way it's supposed to be. There is a better outcome on the horizon.
Yeah. Oh, you put it in nice words, Jay. I think you're still quite a young man, aren't you? It's nice that a younger person is so positive and sees all that, because, you know, the way it's looking everywhere, it's just doom and gloom. But I like the way you put it very positively. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
We want people to be positive about things. We're so negative about things, aren't we?
Yeah, typically. So what else is on your mind?
What, to ask you?
Whatever's on your mind.
Well, I'd like to wish you luck, though, with your writing of your book, and that you've changed your life for this. I'd like to wish you well in that. And because you were talking about it, and I didn't sort of register it there on the Hangout, but the Hangout was saying, oh, good luck and stuff like that to you as well. I don't know, we kind of mentioned it a bit today, but I suppose a bit like your concerns over CERN then.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting one, because I have various ideas when it comes to those types of things. Now, I tie in what's happening or what we have been, you know, what's been released to us publicly about what's happening at CERN, and also tie in the related puzzle pieces of our ancient past, right? Of those beings that we have deemed gods or demons or titans of old. And like I said before, the concept that maybe those energies, when cataclysm befell this world, those energies may also have been locked in for a time. That those energies, those spirits, if you will, are also stuck here. Now, I also, when it comes to the flat Earth, model or whatnot, the concept of the Earth being flat, I don't see edges. I do look at other planes that connect, because I don't believe in separation, but they connect to our realm. We live on Middle Earth, but there are other outer Earths, if you will. There are other outer lands, if you will. At least that's the way it seems to me. Now, according to these writings and these ancient scriptures and myths and poems and things of that nature, the giants or the trolls or the titans, along with some of the ancient god race, left this world for some strange reason. They left Middle Earth all around the same time, and they went off onto those outer lands. Now, those are the gods, if you will, okay? Those are the gods that certain individuals here continue to communicate with. Those beings left behind representatives to stay in contact with them, knowing that there would come a time when that barrier or whatever it is would be removed, and that our realm would once again become a place where we are free to come and go spiritually, as in when you die, you're not forced back here prematurely in many circumstances, as I see it today. People with who've put on the clothing of particular ego and character and sexuality have not been allowed to remove those things in a natural manner before coming back. So they keep those energetic clothing with them when they reincarnate into a new body. However, going back to CERN, it seems to me that CERN may be working towards, they use various methods to try to keep in contact with the quote unquote titans or gods that live outside of this world, and prepare them, and maybe even negotiate now that they've become the power in the world today. I mean, I can't imagine they would be too keen on the barriers being removed and the real gods stepping in, and then they would lose all of their power. They would become subjects as they have made us subject. So it seems to me that they are in communication at various places and various points around and on this realm with those beings still, and perhaps looking for some sort of a way to prepare for the eventual return of the titans, the return of the gods that's prophesied in all of these ancient writings and cultures and religions, that the gods would one day return, something that, collectively we have forgotten about. We've been distracted by it, and I like the way that it's put, biblically speaking, in the Bible. The Bible basically says that there would come a time when the people of the world would think that these things that have happened never really did, and that the things that were foretold would happen never really will. And so they keep looking at the ground under their feet, not preparing. But those who have knowledge are preparing the way ahead of time for the return of these beings, and maybe even negotiating with them to, to find out what their status will be once these beings return. Maybe something needs to happen internally before those on the outside can enter in, before barriers are brought down. So basically, in a nutshell, I believe that CERN is in communication with these beings that exist either on different planes of existence, being different dimensions or densities, and also on a physical alternative plane of existence, and that they work with those beings Because I think that we're being conditioned to aim our guns at the sky and to shoot at the alien invaders who are here to take over the world, things of that nature. And I believe that that's a part of what they are doing, is preparing or trying to hasten that time to come more quickly. Perhaps, working with bringing down the so-called barrier, whether it be energetic or dense and physical.
I have my sort of slight theory about that when you say like entities or different dimensions. And don't think me wrong, but mediums never say anybody's come back. They always say they're the other side. So maybe the other side is we're not in this dimension, so it will feel like entities, but it's just them. They're just in another dimension. If you watch, I can't remember his name, I'm not very good at names, but it's on YouTube. You can find him where he's talking about the fourth dimension, and he's a guy probably from the 60s or 70s. And he's explaining the first dimension into the fourth dimension and what a first dimensional being will see. So he gets an apple, but only the points of where the apple actually touched the ground is what the one-dimensional being will see. You won't see the apple because the apple's in third dimension. Only see maybe something. And so I'm wondering, this is what's happening with the other side or whatever they are, is because they're in another dimension and we just can't see them. They're there. We just can't see them in this dimension. What's your thoughts on that then? The medium never says they've come back. They never say, great Uncle Albert, oh, he's back as your nephew or the neighbor across. They're always over there. They're always on the other side.
Yeah, and you make a good point when it comes to that. So I have a few different ideas when it comes to that. First of all, I approach that particular topic with patience and caution, as is well advised for any topic, right? Knowing that there are clearly charlatans and fakes out there, okay? But being an open channel, or being able to open yourself up to communicate with other energies that are out there is something that people do practice, and it is something that can be done. That's one of those things I was definitely cautioning about, not really participating in if you feel like you want to, until you've had ample practice with somebody to guide you, things of that nature. So I do want to throw that caution out there, and that's also something that the ancient Egyptians taught about. They passed this along to their people. They taught about how to navigate the spirit world, who to talk to, who to trust, how you can tell when to trust another entity or another point of focus that's just on a different vibrational state or density or dimension, right? The Egyptians strongly emphasized caution and learning piece by piece. An excellent example of this can be found in God, I always forget this author's name. I need to write it down. It's the guy that wrote the book series. I'm sure somebody in the chat will tell us. It's the guy that wrote the book series about Don Juan, the Mexican Indian shaman who took this other guy under his wing, and he acted as a teacher to help him to not only navigate, but to experience and see what he calls the spirit world. Because you can't just rush right in with no experience, not knowing what to expect or what to do. It doesn't act in the same way as this world acts. In some ways, it is similar, but you don't just jump into the spirit world and run right up to the first entity that you encounter and just have regular conversation. There is a method. There is a better way to do that, and a less dangerous way when it comes to things like that. But I've read and I've gleaned a lot of good information from those who have said, I've read lots of books where people have become open channels to very famous figures throughout history, and they start off by saying like, good afternoon, I am Einstein, and then they talk with Einstein or whatnot. Well, I don't find any compelling evidence or reason that there would be any type of labeling or names in those types of dimensions, in those other places, that there would not be a name like, okay, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to try to find Shannon. You know, Shannon is out there. Well, whatever that being is, it doesn't have the name Shannon. That's a description that was given here in a physical body so that people would know how to get that person's attention. You know what I mean? They don't have names. Einstein is no longer Einstein when he goes and when he departs his physical earthly body. You know, so if somebody says, I'm speaking with Einstein, and they say, I am Einstein, or I am Nikola Tesla, or, you know, any of these famous figures, those might not be the actual individual people. However, those titles and names are given to us because that's what we are familiar with. That establishes a sense of familiarity and trust because in essence, like I said earlier, we're all connected. Everything is connected. So you're not really talking to a quote unquote separate entity. You're having a conversation with yourself. And so you ease yourself. You find ways to allow you to trust yourself. So you come up with names and things like that. So yeah, a lot of times when people seek out mediums or fortune tellers or things of that nature, they want to find a lost loved one or whatnot. First of all, that person is not lost whatsoever. They're not gone. You know, I don't believe in death. I don't see any evidence for what we call death in the world. I see transformation of energy. Everything is growing and manipulating itself and evolving and moving from one place to another. It's simply in another location, and you always have access to it because you're also in that location. But yeah, usually people will not, the mediums and spiritualists and, you know, people like that, they won't say, oh, I've reached out to your loved one and they're in India. They have a new body and, you know, they want to let you know that their new address so you can come visit or whatnot. That to me, and something that could explain this is that that person is already blocked off. They've re-entered. They're in this world already, and they're experiencing it. They can't hear that communication. You know what I mean? They've moved on. They're busy doing something else, basically. So you know, I would expect for many of these mediums or fortune tellers, things like that, I would expect on occasion, just how every single time you hear them say your loved one is in another place or whatever, right? I would also expect some amount of honesty. Either all of our loved ones are in another place after they've died, or I would expect to hear on occasion, I can't find them. I don't know. I can't locate that person. I'm so sorry. Here's your money back, by the way. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I also want to throw this out there as well. I also find I find that when talking about the spirit world or this other place, another dimension, that we here have our physical bodies, and we think that this is the only place where we are. But it seems to me like there is some sort of a spiritual or energetic string connecting your body that's walking around down here that has a certain percentage of your awareness, and it connects to your other point of focus that corresponds to your physical one here up in that other world. You are coexisting along with everybody else in the world in another place. You're experiencing both at the same time, in the same way that you can sit down, turn on your console, your Xbox, PlayStation. You can be in the game. You can be that character in the game, but the character has a string of wires connecting to the actual person who holds more of the consciousness and the understanding of what's really going on. You know what I mean? So they may be reaching out to that person's higher self, I guess you could call it.
Your higher self. But this whole thing, though, I don't know. When I came across all this stuff about flat Earth and this stuff, there's a part of it just resonates so much with me. Well, a lot of it resonates with me, and I don't have to question it the same way because I just feel it fits so well with. It just does. I don't feel that it is me. It's coming into me. It's around me. It is me. It's the whole thing. Does that make sense? I just know. I haven't gone quite so deeply into subjects like you. On this channel we speak to quite a varied amount of people and lots of different people. So, Son of Boo was about trying to bring the community together as best as possible, the way we could. So that's my sort of bit to this. But I really like the way that you've spoken today, and it's just so nice to hear someone really positive. It's like, yeah, everybody's used to being so negative, aren't they? It's quite a negative time at the moment. Everybody's just worrying.
Yeah. Well, I will say that, I'm making a lot of small changes on my channel. I'm looking at other platforms to be on. It's becoming a little more difficult for people to reach out to me and to get into contact with me because I get so much more requests and emails and messages and stuff from, hundreds of people. And it does take time to do that. So, I'm starting to put things in the section on your video, where it goes into more detail about the video. I'm putting on there, my email address. I'm going to set up a schedule, a time where I'm going to make myself available to chat on things like Skype or Facebook Messenger at a particular time, so people can count on me being there and attempting to respond, in whatever different ways, and interact with people as well. So I'm going to be setting up a schedule so that I can talk to people more. And also, if people want me to appear on their channel or to travel to do lectures or presentations or things like that, I'm making it available so people can email me to try to work out some sort of schedule or timing, so I can make myself available. And I'm going to start doing small things like that and making changes in the social media community, so that, by the time my book is released, I'm there and available for somebody to get to know as much as I possibly can, and to pick my brain and to, ask me questions or just hang out and chat or whatever. My goal is to be able to travel the world, to go to the various places where people are who said that they would like to meet, to hang out, to talk or whatnot. So I would like to be able to go give presentations around the world eventually. And while I'm in those particular areas, to visit people, for those who want to actually, hug and hang out and talk about whatever, or get to know me or things like that. So that's something that I'm currently working on, piecing together my book right now, trying to figure out what information goes into what chapters, and just tidying up my YouTube channel and Facebook groups and things like that, so that they're a lot easier to use and to experience and to work with, So that's something I'm doing. I'm also doing my breadcrumb series. I'm taking a lot of my topics, my various topics that I talk about, because I can ramble at times, as we all tend to do. My breadcrumb series is specifically to just get point after point after point, just to get right to it with visuals and music and all of that stuff, so that people can just get right to the point without listening to, the whole introduction or things like that, as well as doing longer hangouts or live sessions or whatnot, because people do enjoy those as well. But that's what I'm working on, and I'm trying to make myself available for those, who would like to interact with me. I will be reaching out to viewers and subscribers, when it comes time for the book to be published, because I don't know a lot about that. But that's my goal. My goal is to travel the world, to be Indiana Jones, to go on location, to film these things for myself. There's somebody else out there. I forgot his name. A very famous person. I think his name's Brian or something. But he goes on location you know, and he does videos on location. I would like to do that as well. I would love
Brian
to
Forrester,
interview.
you mean? Brian Forrester, you mean?
What is it?
The Pyramid Man, the one that's walking around all the pyramids and hangouts and stuff like that. Is that who you're talking about? Brian
It could
Forrester.
be. There's a few people out there, you know, like I think somebody named Tellinger or something, or other people like
Oh,
that.
right, Michael Tellinger.
Right. So that's what I would like to do. Not a lot of people can escape the loop that they live in. Not a lot of people can get out and see the world and go to these places, you know. And finally, you know, once I'm done doing that, then it is my full intention to go to the North Pole, because there's a lot of speculation as to what exists or does not exist at the North Pole, to find out for myself, record it, document it as much as I can. And then after that, eventually the outer boundary or South Pole. Now, I'm holding off on the South Pole thing for a time because I have this very strong feeling that we are coming upon events that will unfold in my lifetime, and my feeling on it is that something amazing and fantastic is going to happen that's going to be seen or experienced worldwide, so to speak. I don't talk about that particular feeling that I have a lot, just because I know there's a lot of people out there predicting the end of the world or apocalypse or doom and gloom and things of that nature. But I set out my own calculations about 7 years ago, you know, and I figured out for myself when, according to my research, all of it that I pieced together, when I feel like these particular events would unfold. And honestly, I'm sort of waiting out this particular year to see, you know, if there's anything to my research that I've done into that, and if not, then I'll feel more secure in the other plans that I have, so to speak. So, anyways,
I think
yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Thrive and Strive is explaining, talking about similar things in another area, because he covers different things. He sees this change happening right now.
Right.
Can I just say one other thing, Jay? Can I just say that Haas Truth Engineer in the chat room just like to say thank you, and he appreciates all the efforts, and he thinks it's great listening in today. And Plain Permaculture says the same thing to you. Thanks very much, just out of the chat room. And can I add your email then to this post, this hangout, for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, go ahead and put the Proton Mail one. It's JayDreamerZ@protonmail.com.
Right. Okay, I'll add that as well then for you.
Now,
on there.
I do want to throw this out there because, like I said, I get a lot of emails from people. If you email me, please keep it short and be very direct in the email, because if I get a lot of emails and there's paragraphs and paragraphs, it's very time consuming. I might not be able to get to all of them. If it's something else, like you just want to chat or say, hey, thank you, or, you know, hello, things of that nature, go ahead and use Facebook Messenger, reach out to me, or Skype. I'm going to be using Skype more in the future as well. Oh, and if you have any pictures or links or things like that, you know, they can visit the Facebook group I've made, called JayDreamerZ Ancient Oblivion Archive. So you can share pictures and things like that. But if you share pictures on that group, the group is specifically designed to focus on esoteric and hidden history as it pertains to my Ancient Oblivion playlist. So it's not a platform for discussing flat Earth or aliens or those types of things, although I do love talking about those things. That particular Facebook group is for those particular types of subjects and closely related subjects. And that's just because I like to keep the energy very positive in that particular group. You know, when people introduce too many alternative ideas, there's bound to be clash and conflict. So I'm trying to do my part to keep the energy as high as it can be.
Yeah, keep each bit to each bit, otherwise it all becomes one. Too confusing.
Yes.
we've been going for 2 3/4 hours. I don't know how long you like talking for, because I don't know you that well, do I? But we could talk a little bit longer, or do you think that's enough time to talk today?
Holy cow, we've been talking for 2.5 hours?
2 3/4, but we've all loved it. I've really enjoyed this hangout. I myself are a bit more into fairies and things like that. So when I hear someone else talking about these things and around these things, and you've covered it all, I love it.
Oh,
Not
wow.
just that part of it, but yeah.
You know, I think I'm going to start saying gadzooks. I just thought of that. I'm going to start saying gadzooks. I like that one. I'm going to bring back some of these older expressions. But yeah, I absolutely, and we can talk another time. I think it's a good time to wrap things up. We can talk about, I'm very interested, and I'm going to be doing more work on the elven race and how the elves, fairies, leprechauns, you know, all of these fantasy type creatures are interrelated, and there is physical evidence. There's evidence to support who they really are and how we have cartoonified them. We portray them all as caricatures that are a little more fantastic than the reality that once existed, and you know, in some places still does exist today. But yeah, I'd love to talk more about fairies, elves, pixies, sprites, things of that nature. Yes. And you know, if you are interested in that, you might find this to be equally interesting. When you look at the layers of our atmosphere and you Google it, you can pull up sprites, for example, in the atmosphere. And on Google, you'll find that mainstream science has named particular electrical phenomenon in the upper atmosphere after things like fairies, sprites, even elves, I believe, way up in the upper atmosphere, which I think is very interesting. There's a reason why we hearken and herald the elven race and all of the caricatures and spin-offs that have come from the elven race. You know, we've got the, I mean, look at our idea of beauty. You know, I mean, I'll probably go into this another time, but I just want to throw this out there. What we strive to be when it comes to being beautiful is we try to look like our gods. We try to emulate the elven race because we see them as the standard of beauty. That's why we have beauty products called elf. You know, that's why we try to make our eyes bigger, and we try to take on the attributes. We shave. We got to get rid of all this hair because those elves, those ancient rulers of our world, when we did see them, were not furry. They were not hairy. They didn't have all of this hair and facial hair. Now they did have, it seems to me that they did have puberty and things like that. However, they lived for an immensely long time, and they didn't go through those things until they were much, much older. So only the older El are portrayed as being able to have facial hair, body hair, things like that. The younger ones do not. And the younger ones were the ones who were in the public eye. So we see the ancient elven smooth-skinned beings with large eyes, and you know, we want to emulate that. We want to beautify ourselves to look like them. Otherwise, we should really enjoy looking the way we do, right? We're trying to look like something else. So who are we trying to look like? You know? But yeah, we can talk about that stuff next time. Just keep in contact with me, and you know, I'm also going to try to set aside a particular day where I'm available for live streams, or you know, like somebody had me on their radio station a couple weeks ago or something. So I'm going to try to set aside like a particular day so I can actually schedule times where I can make appearances and chat with people and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I hope you get really busy then. Can I just say that obviously we're going to end this hangout in a moment, but could we just say goodbye off air? Because sometimes I say that to people, they just like, they go. It's always nice to say goodbye off air to the person we've had as our guest. So can we just do that in a moment? But
yeah,
for the chat room and everything.
Okay.
Thank you to everybody.
Yeah, I
on the
would just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching. I did post the link on my Facebook page, so maybe some people came in from there. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody. I was glancing over the chat as we've been talking, and while I didn't want to be rude and type as we're having conversation, there are a lot of really great ideas. There's good energy in the chat room, and I couldn't be more honored that I am surrounded by so many people that appreciate the truth. That there's so many truth seekers out there, right or wrong or indifferent. Everyone in there is sharing information, speaking with one another, and making contacts. And I like seeing that. I like seeing everyone come together, and I appreciate you all.
Oh, we very much appreciate you, and thank you very much for that talk today. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, so on that note, thank you everybody in the chat room very much, all the people in the chat room, and thank you to all the people on the panel, including Jay. That was amazing. So we're back tomorrow. Good night from us, and to everybody. Thank you very much.